that, but I was so in love with the ministry because we were so close ahead of our time. We could finish one another's statement, sinners, whatever we had to do, we could just do it. No, that won't love. That's crazy. That's not. No, that's not love. But there came a point, the last incident, when he decided to hold a shotgun to my head. I knew it was time for me to get out of there. And what hurt me the most is the church.
What do you mean?
Everyone told me to stay.
The church told you to stay.
I had
Even
members
though
of the
he
church.
was beating you, the church told you to stay.
Like I said, that was a different time.
As a little girl, I was intrigued with watching my mom and grandparents sitting at the table having coffee, and I wanted coffee. But my mom said, you can't have coffee, but you can have tea. As I grew into adulthood, tea became my choice. I began to study about different flavors and where tea originated. Hello, Tea World. Welcome to my new podcast with Bennie Richardson, Tea Talk, where we're going to talk, empower, and advance. Now, come on, get your teacups, grab them, and let's have tea talk.
Hello, Tea World. Welcome to my podcast, Tea Talk, where we talk. We're going to empower you so that you can advance in your life. Now, today, I have a very special guest with me, and I want you to get your teacups, and I want you to sit down and really take advantage of this tea talk because I really think it's going to be a benefit to you. I have a very special guest with me, Hilda Stevens Antoine. And she has written a book entitled Secrets, the Secrets We Keep. And believe it or not, we all keep secrets. Sometimes we keep them in our families. Sometimes they're on our jobs. And we don't think that these secrets can affect our lives. But they do. They can even change our character. They can change the way that we act, the way that we relate to each other. So my guest today, Miss Antoine, has written a book, and she's going to share with us. But before we do that, you know I have a tea for you, and it's called Lavender and Lemonade. And the reason why I chose lavender and lemonade, because you don't expect to have lemonade in a tea. And just like secrets, you don't expect these things to happen, but they happen, and we cover them up. So the lemonade is kind of covered up, but it is here, and you're going to get a chance to taste it because it's good. And you're going to enjoy, Hilda, what you're tasting. So just give it a taste and tell me what you think before we get started. Give it a taste. I'm tasting it too for the first time.
It's delicious. Yes, that's delicious.
That's pretty good.
That's
Try
delicious.
some lavender and lemonade when you get a chance, Tea World. Well, what we want to do is we want to get started because I think our tea audience, I think we've intrigued them even with the title of the book, Secrets. So, Hilda, first of all, to our tea audience, just talk to them a little bit about yourself. Just tell them a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Apostle Hilda Stevens Antoine. I'm the founder and pastor of Uplift Outreach Ministry in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I'm also a published author. I've written the book The Secret We Keep, and also God Is This My Man, a fiction, a romance novel. There's 7 books in this series. I have one daughter, Letitia. I also have a son-in-law and I have 3 grandchildren, and I love to mentor people. I love to help people, and I just really enjoy life.
That's a lot. You sound like that you are very, very busy. But you had time to sit down and write this book called Secrets. So what we're going to do is we're going to delve into this book called Secrets. Tell our listening audience what inspired you to write that book.
Well, that book, Secret, was 20 years in the making.
That's a long time.
And I had a secret at a very young age, at the age of 17. And so I decided that I needed to do something. And what happened, that secret started so young. I was a senior in high school, on my way to college, and found out I was 3 months pregnant. And man, you talking about disappointing. I was so disappointed. And that secret led me to keep that away from my dear old mother.
You mean to tell me you were pregnant at 17 and you didn't tell your mother?
I didn't tell my mother. And the reason why? Because that was a different time. That was in the 70s. And back then, your parents believed that you should be married if you were going to have a child.
Right.
And so I didn't want to disappoint my parents because I would be the first child to go to college. But it happened, and I had to deal with it.
I read that on page 3 in your book that was where the secret started, that you were pregnant and you didn't tell your mom. I mean, I'm a little confused. So let me just kind of let you help me. How were you able to have a baby and your mom not know?
Well, what happened, Bennie, is I was so small. I was very small. But what I decided to do, I just decided to buy my clothes a little bigger. And I think I was fooling my mother. But my mother really knew. But she lied. She allowed me to just continue to just say I was okay. But I really wasn't fooling her. I was fooling myself. So it began to happen. My mother said, something is changing with you. And I said to myself, oh, yeah, something is changing with me. Yeah. And so the neighbors began to call my mother and ask, was I okay? And how was I doing? And I just kept lying. I just kept lying. And I kept lying. Until one day my mother said, I had enough. And the day my mother said, you going to be okay? I began to cry, and I thought I would cry for weeks. That was the best relief of my life, that my mother knew that I was pregnant and I was going to be okay.
And that you were keeping a secret. Okay. Now, the book, because I don't want to give away too much for the book, because I want our listening audience to purchase this book. But I do want you to share some vital points with us. Okay, so after the baby, do you marry? What happens? You write in the book that you marry. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You marry this gentleman who is a bishop. Is that correct?
That's correct. I married a bishop, and boy, that's a story within itself.
Describe this bishop to us.
Well,
Tell us about the bishop.
Bishop was an excellent man in the gospel of Jesus Christ. He loved the Lord. He had a great discernment. I mean, people would say when he would come into town, here come the bishop. He come to read the mail.
What do you mean by he come to read? Wait a minute. Our audience may not know what you mean. What do you mean he come to read the mail?
Well, he had a gift of discernment, so he could always help people in their life. And he was a blessing. But it was like Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at home. And so that became difficult, being married to a bishop that would also abusive.
Oh, so this big bishop who was able to be a blessing to people in churches, he was abusive to you? In what way do you mean he was abusive?
Yes, he was abusive. The thing of it is, like I said about secret, I did not marry after I had the child. It was some years later when I got married. But the thing about this story was, I remember the first incident, and it was just like yesterday. Um, I came home, I think I was talking a little bit too much. So I had this conversation and I was asking him too many questions. And before I knew it, he had knocked me on the floor.
Really?
And I was devastated. And I was also in shock. And I said, this can't be happening. But it happened.
I'm sure you were in shock because this was the first time, right?
It was the first time.
And I'm sure you were in shock that he actually hit you and knocked you out.
Yeah.
So how did you feel in that instant? I mean, can you take us back there? How did you feel?
Well, at first I said to myself, I can't believe this. This is not happening. But the pain, I think the pain, you know, what I endure. And I was thinking to myself, is this the way life is supposed to be? Especially with a man of God. And so that moment, I became afraid.
Of him?
I was afraid of him for the last 15 years.
So 15 years, did this go on, this abuse go on for 15 years?
It went on every time he was upset about something.
And are you saying he would take that out on you?
Yes.
What about your daughter? Did he take it out on her?
No, my daughter at that time was living with my parents, and she lived with my mother most of the time. And so she was protected.
Okay.
Because I knew right then,
Not to bring her into
no,
that.
she was not coming into that situation. And I also knew that I was not going to put up with that.
Right. So were there times when you would go to service and you had been beaten? I mean, did you cover up? I mean, what did you do it sometimes?
Man, I had the best story. I went to church with cracked ribs, black eyes, bruises. But the thing about it, I would always say, oh, maybe I did something wrong. I would cover up for him. I was good at covering him up. I protected him because he was a man of God. And what hurt me the most is the church.
What do you mean?
Everyone told me to stay.
The church told you to stay.
I had members of the church
beating you. The church told you to stay.
Like I said, that was a different time. That was a different times. It was in the early 80s, and everybody thought, it would work out on its own. He would come around. It never did change until I made some quality decisions.
So your book, and like I said, I don't want to tell everything, but I do want to get to this point right here. You write that one night you decided that you had had enough. In your book, I read it. Can you tell our listening audience what you decided to do?
Well, Bennie, this was a dark, dark place in my life. I decided this will be his last night on this earth. So I decided I'm going to take him out tonight. But I thought about this. I had my plan. I had decided how I was going to do it. And I was ready for action. But God.
Can you share with our audience what you decided to do?
Well,
what was your plan?
Well, I wanted to say this because I thought about this question. So this is the way I have to answer this question. But God. But God. Because nobody knows. Because I can feel it now. But God. He covered us.
Right.
And the reason I have to say it like that is because I want to still show that respect for his family.
Okay.
And I know it was God that covered us. But he knew. He knew. My husband knew. And he came and he told me. He said, the Lord said that you was going to try to kill me. But God covered us both.
And so those were secrets that you kept about your husband from your family, from the congregations, from everybody in order to make him look good.
I did it so many times I was good. But there came a point, the last incident, when he decided to hold a shotgun to my head. I knew it was time for me to get out of there. And I left and I never looked back. Never looked back.
So is he alive now?
No.
He's not. Okay.
But the great thing about that, God has a way of bringing you back together. God has a way of forgiveness. And he told me, he said, if you don't forgive him, you won't be blessed. And so the last 5 years of his life, I took care of him.
Okay.
He
Took
was
care of him because
he was sick. And so I found him a place, apartment. I paid his bills. I cooked for him. He lived in Raleigh. I lived in Durham. But I took care of him down to his death. I even buried him. And all I can say is what amazing God we serve. And our relationship, it got better. But we had to live apart.
good, because I'm glad that you were saying, because to those, we're not advocating that you were being beaten, that you need to stay there, but you said we had to live apart. But I forgave him, and like you said, and God told me you're gonna be blessed,
Right.
and you have been blessed
Yes.
because you have remarried. Am I correct?
Yes.
And I met your husband. Now this woman right here, this man treats her like a queen.
That's right.
So you have been blessed. So what I want you, Hilda, to do, if you would look at our listening audience and tell them, what lessons did you learn about keeping secrets?
The most important thing I learned is that secret will harm you. Secret will keep you from doing the best that God has for you. And that when you find yourself at a place where you need help, you need to get the help you need. I learned from my secret. I learned to be honest with myself. I learned to tell myself the truth. When I felt like I was in danger, I knew I was in danger. I had to do something about that. I want everybody to know there is help out there. You should allow someone to know when you need help, because help is available. And that's the best thing you can learn. Don't allow anyone to tell you to stay in that situation. It's not good. It's not healthy. But you will be blessed. And you can forgive the person that is doing the harm to you. But you have to trust God and develop his strength and his character. And you're going to be okay.
Thank you. I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at how beautiful you are.
Thank you.
Today. And you've heard people say you don't look like what you've been through.
So
You
true.
don't. Can I say that to you? That you don't look like what you've been through. And can I also say to you that God has so much more for you? Sometimes we don't understand why we go through things in life, but we go through it. and the good thing about it is that you've come through it, and you've written a book about it. And to our listening audience, there's so much more in the book that she did not tell you about. There's so much more in the book. And so we want you to go out and get the book, because it will be helpful to you. And also, if you will tell our listening audience about your other books again and where they could find those books.
Yes, I also written 7 fiction romance novels. You can go to Amazon.com, or you can contact me at my email address, stepping2, which is STEPPINGTOO at yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to mail you a copy. So they're available. And so purchase the book.
That's right. Purchase the book. I hope that we've gotten you to think, well, man, I need to read this book. I need to find out what else is going on in this book. And I want to thank you for being my guest today. I really do. It is, I just feel so grateful and so blessed to have you here. And I have just a little gift for you. And what it is a teacup and a saucer. And it's china. And what I want you to do is that, times when you sit down and you want to relax and you just want to kick off your shoes, I want you to pick up teacup, have some tea, and I want you to remember Tea Talk and the fact that you were our very special guest, one of our very special guests. And I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And also to our listening audience, I thank you for being with us and taking the time to sit and listen. Please share this podcast. You may know someone who has been keeping secrets, and they need to come out of the secret. They need to come into the light. They need to be able to live their life free from secrets. Please share. We love for you to share. We'll even tell you how to subscribe. When you go in, it tells you how to subscribe very easily, and you'll be able to subscribe. So we're going to sip to this. So until we meet again, thank you again, listening audience, for being with me, and enjoy your day. Thank you for watching Tea Talk today. I invite you to get a copy of my book. It's entitled God's Woman. If you would like to give or to purchase my book, please go to my link in my bio.